everyone. You're listening to Michelle Speaks on 180radionow.com, currently heard in over 128 countries around the world, and I'm your host, Michelle Portier, founder of Healing Women, Healing Nations of Northeast Florida. We live in a society that condones living behind masks, hiding who we are and the issues we face, some too taboo to discuss with you. You may be worried about being judged or ashamed of what others may be thinking of you. Michelle Speaks not only uncovers it, but we look for solutions to deal with it head on. Stay tuned as we get to the heart of the matter, because if you hide it, you can't heal it. Welcome to this week's episode of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. With me, your host, Michelle Portier. Today, we are going to be talking about the pros and cons of being a public figure and how that impacts your interpersonal relationships. And I have with me in the studio today a very special guest, a dear friend, an awesome woman, Heather Thompson. And before I introduce you all to Heather Thompson, I just want to give you a little intro about what we're going to be talking about. Many public figures achieving celebrity status is not something intentional. It is simply a byproduct of their pursuit of success in their particular field. For example, most professional footballers wanted, when young, simply to become the best player they could be at the highest level they could reach. They don't wish to be role models and claim no special moral status, so why should their private lives be subjected to more public scrutiny? Continual probing into the private lives of public figures can actually potentially harm their personal lives and interpersonal relationships, all because they're pursuing their dreams and goals of living their lives to their fullest potential. Very few public figures will have entirely spotless private lives, free from embarrassing indiscretions committed while young and irresponsible, should this be held against them and the public service they provide as a whole. Stay with us and let's get to the heart of the matter. So I want to thank you, Heather, for so much for agreeing to come on and just share a little bit about the pros and cons of being a public figure, how that's affected your interpersonal relationships, and then we'll touch on some hot topics as well. But first, I would like for you, Heather, to tell my listening audience, who is Heather Thompson, personally, professionally, and spiritually?
Well, hi, Michelle, and everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
We are excited to have you.
And I love the whole platform and the idea. If you hide it, you can't heal it, and that is for sure.
Right.
And I love that. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but it all starts with, speaking your own truth. And
exactly.
I always say I've stolen it, but the truth will set you free, and that's for sure it will.
That it will.
Who is Heather Thompson? At the end of the day, I'm just a girl from upstate New York, from a divorced family, an immigrant father who, came over from Scotland, and the mother of Italian immigrants, who was taught how to work hard, and was taught a good work ethic. That nothing in life really came easy, that, you had to work for what you needed. I was raised in generally, a middle class to lower middle class family.
Okay.
I had two parents that worked. I was raised in the 70s and 80s and, came home alone, at a young age.
A latchkey kid.
Where one parent left and the other parent didn't return yet. And was very independent, as a young girl, and always, was taught to recognize the world around you, and that there were always people that had it worse than you did,
right?
And learn to give back, and learn to, kind of help thy neighbor, if you will,
right?
And so, that's who I am, and that hasn't changed a whole lot,
okay.
As I near 50 years old.
Right.
Those values that were instilled in me as a child, and the experiences, that I had as a child, molded me into, who I am today.
Right, right. And I have to say, you're an amazing looking, almost 50-year-old. And thank you so much for sharing that. And for my listening audience, Heather Thompson is amazing, and she's very humble. So tell us a little bit more about who you are professionally.
Well, professionally, I started when I graduated from college. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I felt very spit out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, God, I graduated after getting a bachelor's degree, and I'm lost. I have no idea
Right.
Who I want to be when I grow up. And I had a wise mother who said to me, just because you graduated from 4 years of college doesn't mean you're going to know exactly what you want to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
Take some time to reflect on the things that you love, that bring you joy, that you will enjoy doing. I have this motto that I kind of learned from my mother, but I coined myself. I say, it's only work if there's someplace else you'd rather be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for sure. So my mother guided me to find my passion and things I love. So what I love to do is I love to ski. So after getting a bachelor's degree in communications and marketing, I was like, well, I want to ski.
So you did.
So I went to the local ski shop and I got a job as a product specialist. I supported myself through college as a ski instructor.
Okay.
And so I was demoing the boots and the bindings and things. By the way, when I say I supported myself, I supported, keg beer and,
Oh, wow.
and Domino's Pizza.
Right, the
and
natural
Joe
trappings
Polo
of
was on my
college.
list back then.
Yeah,
all the necessities, exactly.
Right.
I think I probably should have had stock and ramen noodles.
Oh my goodness.
So,
I can definitely relate.
And I had the 15 freshman pounds to show for it. So,
I beg to differ.
Right? I mean, the freshman 15, I was like, it's more like 20. But
Right.
So I got a job in the ski shop, and I was doing what I loved, and I recognized that I wanted a career in the ski industry.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't ultimately ever have a career in the ski industry other than being a ski instructor for a while.
Right.
But what I found while I was working toward a career in the ski industry was that I started to care more about what I was wearing and what other people were wearing to go skiing in than I was about the
Actual
perfect
skiing, the sport itself, right?
Yeah, the perfect stem Christie, as we call it, when you're learning how to ski.
Okay.
And, the form, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I realized that I wanted to design clothing.
Okay.
And my catalyst was that I wanted to design ski clothing.
Okay.
And it turned out that I never did design ski clothing. I came very close with my own brand of active apparel with my namesake brand, Yummy by Heather Thompson. I did get to do active apparel.
An
and
awesome brand, by the way, if I can put in a plug.
Thank you. Thank you. It certainly started for all the right reasons.
Right.
And, I bore a lot of blood, sweat, and tears building that business. Mm-hmm. And, it's unfortunate that, I had to step down. But, we're looking at these things. I'm in a lawsuit for those of the listeners who don't know over my brand Yummy and my name. With a bully, right. Someone who just is, got more money than me and, wants to push me around. And so,
well, you know what?
I built it once, I'll build it again.
We've always been champions for the underdog, and I do believe that you will prevail.
Thank you. Well, I mean, the legal system is a tough playground, and there's no game in it at all. It's unfortunately it's flawed in so many ways, and it definitely favors the people that have the most with the most money.
Right.
And so I've spoken to many lawyers and ask them, there are some people that use the system to earn incomes and make a very nice life for themselves based on the flaws in the system.
Right.
And then there are other people that try to better the system. And so I try to surround myself with the latter.
Those that are trying to better the system,
but anyway,
and I can see that, yeah.
Professionally, I'm a fighter. I stand up for what I believe in. I've never been quiet as a person. It's funny. I was raised in the 70s by, a mom that said, you can be anything you want to be.
Right.
And, coming off of the 50s as she was, kind of put in a box as a female.
Okay.
She was raising two daughters that she wanted them to know you can be whatever it is you want to be. And so I came out of my small town and into the big world very fearlessly.
Okay.
I wasn't jaded by the realities that we see in the world today and the inequality, inequalities for women and clearly minorities in this country.
Right.
And by the way, I don't want to down the almighty powerful white male. Okay, not every white male in this country has it going on either.
Right.
And I hate that we. I don't like that we always put everybody in this one big bucket. There's always good and bad in any bucket that you look in.
Well, there's good and bad in everyone.
So I don't like to categorize that.
Right. And I said there's good and bad in everyone. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And in every class system, every classification, and every color, race, gender, whatever you want a religion you want to talk about. There's always good and bad people in all the world, as we know.
And speaking of that, who is Heather Thompson spiritually?
Say that one again, Michelle.
I said, who is Heather Thompson spiritually?
Oh, spiritually.
Yes.
Ooh, she's a good one.
Yes.
She's my favorite one.
We saved the best for last.
I love that. I really love that question, and I haven't been asked it before. I don't hang my hat necessarily on any one religion or on an organized religion, so to speak,
right.
That isn't, a community-driven initiative. I don't believe in the fear of God. I believe that, there is a higher power that lives in each and every one of us, and that we have to strive each day to find our own light and let it shine and let it burn brightly for others to see. Because we all can be leaders and we all have a gift.
Right.
And so, whether you find that gift and you can feel that, spirituality through organized religion and going to your place of worship every day or every Sunday or whatever day it is that, that you go. For me, I find it, mostly I find it in the mountains.
Okay.
I find
and there's a saying that says,
outside in nature.
There's a saying that says, and I can't quote it, I'm probably going to paraphrase it. And people say it all the time, talking about being in the mountains. It's like it's God's country.
Yes.
And I experienced that, on a trip, actually trekking in the mountains during one of my first mountaineering experiences. And it was during one of those experiences where I met Heather. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I don't like the word religion because I believe that's man-made. It's all about relationship. So I love what you shared about that. So there you have it for my listening audience.
Your relationship, whatever that higher power is that you feel, you know what I mean? And for those people who don't feel it, who are like, I'm agnostic, you find it in yourself, feel it in yourself. And so, those are, those neighborly things like doing good for others and, or taking scriptures, do unto you as you would have others, do unto others as you would have others do to yourself, right? You see how much I read the Bible. I can't even get it right. But
I got
you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I got you, yeah.
You got what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Just be a good person. At the end of the day, no matter what it is, whether it's, me dealing with someone who's on a nutrition journey, a wellness journey, wants to do better in their lives, or someone who wants to do better in their jobs, or wants to do better parenting, or wants to be a better daughter or friend, or husband or, teacher. When you really ask the question, well, what is it that you think you're doing wrong, and what is it do you think that you could do better? Everybody knows the answer. Right.
Well, we do know right from wrong, and we have free will. Yeah.
If you really look deep in, you know the answers to the things that you could be doing better or that you want to improve on.
Right.
And so then what we need to do is then lend those people support to see that through.
Right.
And sometimes the world isn't supportive. Right. And sometimes it's hard, and I'll summarize it in just food, the food that we eat and the propaganda. And, Diet Coke makes you fat, right? So that's that's not something that's supportive of someone who thinks they're trying to do the right thing by drinking Diet Coke when they're given the wrong information.
Right.
And it doesn't say Diet Coke makes you fat, right? So, this is, I'm simplifying it when it comes to food because it's an easy simplification, but you can use that in any equation in life.
Right, right.
So once you figure out what you need to do, then you need the support to get there.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for enlightening our listening audience about who Heather is personally, professionally, and spiritually. So we want to get right into the meat of it. So Heather, how has becoming a public figure impacted your interpersonal relationships?
Well, interpersonally, with the people that I already knew before I, went on television, on a reality show, I had some mixed emotions and mixed bag of opinions when it came to me doing The Real Houses of New York. And most of the people that were concerned about me doing the show were genuinely concerned. They didn't think I fit in, the person that they knew, didn't think I fit in with the types of people that they cast, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show.
Right.
But I understood that, it isn't edited. It is not a scripted TV show. However, it is an edited TV show.
Okay.
And so they can manipulate, we are on TV for entertainment. After all.
Right.
So they can manipulate a scene to make it more entertaining. And sometimes it's at your detriment.
Right.
So friends were worried about that. Then I also had friends that were just straight up jealous of the opportunity. Oh, God, it's ridiculous. I would never do that. You should never do that.
So there was a little bit of cattiness, and downplaying.
Yeah, I wish it was me. But instead of saying, oh, God, I wish I had that opportunity, how exciting, they had to put down my opportunity and the fact that I had, had this opportunity come my way.
Right. And how did you handle that? And why do you think that is, among women, that jealousy, that envy?
I think that it has to do with society. I think it has a little bit to do with our environment as women. And, we have for decades and decades and decades been, treated, with inequality. And, we didn't have the right to vote, right? You know, Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, the amazing show. And, what the writing of that show, when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to compel him to put women in the sequel, right? Because, all men are created equal. So that's how this country was started. So women had to crawl up each other's backs to get ahead. Or
do you think necessarily crawl up each other's back? I believe I'm just from my own perception. Wouldn't it be more powerful for us to come together to help one another?
Well, of course it would, and that's the beauty of history, and that's the beauty of change, and that's the beauty of evolution, because the whole world will never evolve that way, because like I started, there are good and bad in every sector, section, story you can tell. But when the majority understands that together, united, we are stronger, and when that starts to permeate and they actually see that happening, you have to have, again, I'm going to bring it back to food and our figures because it's just an easy thing to do.
Are you a foodie, Heather?
I'm a health and wellness coach, and I am a foodie, and I have a nutrition degree. So it's just but it tends to be a very good analogy for things in life. So if you are dieting, right, and you're seeing a lot of good come out of your diet, or you're working out and you're seeing your body change, you're going to stick with it. If you're doing these things, but you're not seeing change and you're not seeing any type of evolution, then you're not going to stick with it. Right. And so I say the same thing about women supporting women. So once they start to see, wonderful leaders that we had in the 70s, Gloria Steinem, right? Where she was an outlier. And then you turn that into Sheryl Sandberg from today, who says, lean in, right? When you start to see women supporting women and women move ahead, then more women are going to fall in line. But if you go back to, Mad Men, you know what I mean? And that famous, that's what it was like. And so
Right.
women either had to unbutton their blouses or they had to stab each other in the back to get ahead. And so I think that is a product of our history. And I hope that together, just by you and me talking about it right now,
Right.
and maybe today someone's going to go into the office and actually support the coworker that they've been trying to, out for the job or something like that, and come together as a team and figure out ways to reach across the aisles and, reach across the cubicles and support each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to take time and proof in the concept.
Well, I hope that is the case. That is our goal and our objective, and that is the outcome. What I wanted to talk to you about, Heather, the hot topic that we kind of mentioned briefly right before we came on, Harvey Weinstein and the accusations of rape. How often do you think that happens? I believe it happens all the time. And what can we do as women to support those women that are coming out, not just in this particular case, but in general, being in the industry that you're in? Have you ever had to encounter that? And what can we do to hold him accountable? Not just him per se, but those like him.
Yeah. So yes, the answer is yes. It's happened. I've been advanced upon or treated inappropriately.
Mm-hmm.
On so many occasions I can't really even count. And shamefully today, as I stand here, I allowed it, and I chalked it up to that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? Or almost, being one of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Priding myself in being one of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
I can take it. And it was just the culture, it was the way it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, just going back to what I said, and, Harvey Weinstein is the ultimate looking glass, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just him. He is now the big headline, and it's his name, and he's the one out there. But it is so many men, that feel as though that they have power or can overpower women. And the reason why they continue to do it is because it's allowed.
Right.
And so, and I've allowed it. So I can only say now that, the being so brave as, these women have been,
Mm-hmm.
not only the pioneers, the frontiersmen, the one that are paving the way, Rose McGowan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, she took a payout years ago when she was young and stupid, she says, right? To make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
And now she says, ain't no money big enough for me to keep my mouth closed.
Well.
And, your silence is deafening women. Everybody so it's not just Harvey Weinstein, any woman who's had it happen, right?
And it's across the board. It's not just in that industry. I mean, it's happened in the military. There's a big spotlight on that now, on the military sexual trauma. But it's everywhere.
Here it is. Now maybe, Michelle, see, this is what I want to say, and I'm sorry because I can't hear you that well, so I'm sorry if I'm speaking over you.
You're fine.
We'll make it work. Want to say about that. So today, because this has happened, right, because this exposure has been, spotlighted and everybody can see it, now maybe tomorrow, when it happens to someone in the workplace tomorrow, they'll say, that is not okay.
Right.
And now they'll have a support system to feed into it, because in the past, we would have been ostracized.
Right.
Or we have been ostracized. Or we've had to accept things to just kind of get by, right?
Right.
And so I don't think that we should take funning out of the workplace. And I don't think, casual fun in the workplace between we are different sexes, after all. I don't think women should start dressing like men, and you know what I mean? Like,
I definitely don't believe that.
But I do think that women need to understand that, there is sexuality, and I've never been in a business meeting. I can tell you, never have I been in a business meeting that I have thought, geez, I wonder what size that guy's penis is.
Right.
Okay, I've never, ever thought that in a business meeting. But I definitely have noticed as a woman, for other women, like I can see down her blouse. It's hard for me not to look down at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't dress like women, but I'm saying that there is, I even see it in temple. If I see, young girls dressed with very short skirts in a place of worship, right?
Well, there's a way.
I just think there's appropriate dressing and there's inappropriate dressing, and I think the change has to evolve. If you want to be taken seriously, be serious.
Exactly. I mean, and there's a way for us to maintain our femininity and our womanness without being provocative and without, and we're not by any means saying, we're not by any means saying, I just want to put this caveat out there. We're not by any means saying that the way a woman dresses will make her more prone to being assaulted, or raped. That is not what we're saying. What we are saying is that being mindful in your surroundings, in the workplace or wherever you are, that men are visual creatures, and not saying that we're excusing them, but we need to hold them accountable as well and not allow them to use their position of authority and abuse that, because rape, sex, all of that, it's all about power, because they know they can and they know they can get away with it. So, we've got to talk about it and end that stigma of shame and guilt and condemnation that's attached to that, because silence breeds sickness, and it's time for us to stop protecting our predators. It's time to start saving our women that have encountered this for years and years and years and years. The effects of it are long reaching. How many women now are having issues, mental health issues with interpersonal relationships? Some of the most not the most well-renowned women have encountered this, and some of them, after years in the industry, because we're talking about public figures, are just now starting to come out. And so we just have to talk about it.
That's exactly it, because it's all about the support, right? It's about the support system. There's some women, if you dressed in a straitjacket, they'd still want to grope you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
And there's thousands and thousands and millions of men out there that would never think of it.
Right.
Okay, would never think of it. So there's always the good and the bad, but now the beauty in this, horrible travesty that's been, a light is shined on, is that we know it's happened. We know it happens. We know it's happened for years and years, and it's happened all the time. And now with these frontiersmen, these pioneers that say it's not okay, what we are providing women is with support to say it's not okay.
We're helping them.
And by the way, sometimes if you brush the guy off the first time, because I know it's happened, that ain't ever happening.
Right.
It stops.
Mm-hmm.
It stops immediately.
Sometimes
and
it
say,
stops.
Well, you can't blame a guy for trying, right?
Right.
Because it was kind of me saying, well, that's just the way it is. You can't blame a guy for trying. Well, maybe there'll be a day when you can, and it's just not appropriate. And a female peer in the office is looked at from a male perspective, just like a male peer.
Sometimes
and vice versa.
Right. Sometimes that first time will blow them off, but because men are by nature hunters. Sometimes some of them see that as a challenge. But with women continuing to stand strong, I believe that will shift. Take for instance the tail hook. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. That was something that happened in the military years ago. A lot of men that were in positions of power, like high-ranking officials, went to an event, and the women there that were also high-ranking officials were subjected to sexual harassment, touching. I don't know if it actually involved actual rape, but one of the whistleblowers who I had the opportunity of speaking on a panel with her in July was really talking about how detrimental it was to her because she spoke out. Mm-hmm. And so we just have to get to the point where it's okay for women to find their voice and use their voice and stand their ground and speak their piece and know that their bodies belong to them and they're not sex objects.
Yeah, it's hard when you're in a position of vulnerability, and vulnerability can be very positive, but it can also be negative, right? So when you want something they have, right? And maybe if you unbutton your blouse for me, you'll get it. When we're talking about women in Hollywood who are vying for parts in these big, and so it's completely
they're chasing their dreams,
advantage of a position of power.
Right, they're chasing their dreams. And they're doing what they feel they have to do to achieve their dreams, and it's sad that they feel like they have to be subjected to that. And
Well, you know what? Some of them didn't, and I'm proud of the women that have also spoken up that said, he advanced me and asked me to take off my blouse, and I didn't do it.
Right.
And basically, what I wound up doing was, walking away from a dream because,
Right.
And hey, maybe this woman would have never gotten a movie part,
Right.
with her blouse on or with her blouse off. You know what I mean? I don't know, but but certainly it shifted, where she was putting her energy and pouring her energy, and had that not happen, and she had different type of experience, you don't know where that would have led.
Right, right. And so for the encounter that you had, did that cause you to kind of shy away from what you wanted to do or what you wanted to pursue, or did you have any?
No, I grew up with a neighborhood of all boys.
Okay.
So
Wow,
I was always one of the guys.
Right.
I was a little bit of a tomboy, and I remember when I was maybe about 12 or 13, my dad walked over to the field in the park with me that day when, we were on for our, everyday game of, football. And it was, I would come home for dinner, and I'd be like, man, they keep holding me down, and the tackle's longer, and, they're trying to touch my boobs or whatever.
Right.
And they were just young boys
Right.
who were, feeling their testosterone. And my dad walked me to the football field. He didn't make me stop playing. He just said, from here on in, you guys play flag football.
Right.
No more tackle.
Right. So he just
it was
removed.
something I was subjected to.
Right, right.
Just boys being boys, as one of the the only girl in the neighborhood kind of thing, and so for me it became that was the brush off for it.
Okay.
Boys being boys. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so now I reflect back at it, and especially over the last couple years, and certainly the last 48 hours or 64 hours or whatever, I felt a little sick to my stomach a couple times.
Right.
Things I allowed, enough. I was never raped. I was never sexually taken advantage of.
Right.
I was, slapped on the ass. I was spoken to inappropriately.
Right.
You know what I mean? That I allowed.
Mm-hmm.
I chalked it up, and I would teach my daughter differently.
Right. Right. And of course,
one time is too many.
Right.
And if I stood, and there was a time when it was a sexual advance, like, no, honey, that I appreciate the compliment, but that ain't never going to happen.
Right. Right.
Well, it really wasn't a compliment when I turned back at it, and when I
Hindsight,
shut him down, though,
right.
he shut off and
That's
he stopped
good.
trying. But you know what he did? He just went after somebody else.
Right. Right. And, but you nipped it in the bud. Yeah. So Heather, our society seems to have become conditioned to take even long-established relationships, marriages namely, and merely cast them aside because of some embarrassing issues that have come up where one spouse is a public figure. Why have relationships become so disposable at the first drop of a problem or indiscretion that's gone public? Where's the mental constitution of women in sticking things out and dealing with it, no matter how public the problem is or even who the public figure is?
Well, I didn't hear the entire question, I have to say, so I want to make sure I answer it right. So if I go off on the wrong path, but I think that every indiscretion in a relationship is a personal situation.
Okay.
And that every single person, whatever they choose, if their spouse or their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever their loved one has had infidelities, I think that it is up to that particular relationship to deal with it. Society cannot hang a bar over each and everybody's individual situation.
Okay.
There are some people out there that are just not meant to be with one person.
Right.
You know what I mean? And are lying to themselves and lying to their spouses when they continue to have infidelities over and over and over again.
Okay.
Sometimes it's potentially a void in a relationship or a relationship that's gone stale.
Right.
You know what I mean? That these things happen. So I think that, when these infidelities happen to these public figures, like, Anthony Weiner, let's take him for an example. I mean, the guy has, issues that need to be treated, with a doctor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and his wife chose to stand by him until it became too much that she shouldn't, and that she couldn't. Hillary Clinton, she had a child involved, a young child. Hillary Clinton chose to stay with Bill Clinton. that was her choice. And, you know what I mean? I don't think that anybody should judge whether it's public or private, anyone's choice when it has to do with their personal relationship.
Right. And that's therein where the dilemma is.
Listen, come on, the rules have changed. First of all, we're all living longer than we used to.
Exactly.
Okay, so marriages are lasting a lot longer
because we're taking better care of ourselves.
Yes, we're under a lot of pressure. Women and men both working in the household. I mean, a lot of things have changed since the time when if a woman even thought about another man, she'd be stoned in the town center.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But yet men's infidelities were always accepted.
And
so I think it's about time we stop judging each other and start supporting that everybody's individual and everybody's different. And there's no one law or rule that wrote the land. Some people today enjoy open marriages. I mean, that's not for me.
Right.
But if that's for them, I'm not going to judge it.
Right. Definitely not for me.
So I think what I would say is I'll coin puppy. Do you.
Well,
you do you. I'm going to do me, and you do you. And that's how I see it.
And so that falls into line, with the topic of the program, the pros and cons of being a public figure. It seems that public figures are held to a higher standard of accountability. And my own personal belief is that their personal lives should be kept personal. I mean, it doesn't take away with what they're offering as a public figure. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I have two schools of thought on that. The first one is I agree with you. Just because you're on a Hollywood screen and that's the life that you've chosen doesn't mean that you should be open to, public, everybody knows it into your personal life, right?
Right.
On the other hand, these magazines that you see on the newsstands, these weekly ragtags, most of the people that are in those magazines are in there by choice.
Oh, really?
Okay, so yes.
That's something new learned today.
There's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
So if you look, there's certain figures that are, something happens and then they're followed and the paparazzi, stays on their tail, or they all of a sudden become big megastars, like Lady Gaga sprung out of nowhere, right?
Right.
And then the media was all over. But she also wore raw meat on her body. Do you know what I mean? So she was subjecting herself, to media. Since Stephanie Germanotta has changed from Lady Gaga to Stephanie Germanotta and made some choices in her life, she's not on the cover of the magazines every day, and she's as super duper famous as she ever could be, right?
Prior to, right?
So a lot of the people that you see on the weeklies are there because they choose to be there.
Okay, good deal.
And they choose to, and then you have those that are chased down because there is some type of drama going on, or like Harvey Weinstein right now is they're gonna be camping outside his house just to get a picture because they go for money, right? So that talks about again our society and the fact that we salivate for this type of thing. It's a shame that our leading doctors aren't on the cover of magazines, but our biggest celebrity who fell out of rehab are.
Right.
So I have two schools of thought on it. I believe that you can be a public figure and live a private life.
Yes.
I believe that you can. And I believe that, there are privacy laws and they're getting better and better to protect those celebrities who don't want to be in the public eye when they're not acting and on screen.
Right.
And then I think there is the ego that feeds a lot of these stories and a lot of the sales of these magazines and the intrigue, with Hollywood. But at the end of the day, everybody's just, we all bleed red.
Right.
We're all made up the same way.
Right.
And, the only thing that separates us is what we allow society to put on us and the restrictions that we allow to put on us. And
can you say that again? Say that last part again.
It's got to be an uprising.
Heather, can you say that last part again about we can only... What did I say? Let's see. I rambled so much. Right. You were saying something about.
We can.
Go ahead.
We all bleed red, right? And so as a society, we allow labels and restrictions.
It right there. That's it.
Certain people to float higher than other people, and I always have. It's always going to be social action.
Right.
It's always going to I always call it what's going to be the next Selma.
Right.
You know what I mean? That is what brings change. People bring change.
I love that.
People and the choice. And so if you want to stop reading the magazines, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Then they're going to stop they'll find new ways to gain our interest.
Gain entertainment.
If you stop buying high fructose corn syrup and foods that contain it, then the government's going to have to stop making it.
Right.
So we're not going to be able to change corrupt politicians. We're not going to be able to change the celebrities that want to be on the covers of the magazines, but then in effect those that don't, right?
Right.
But we can start to make choices.
That's good. That's key. That's good. Heather, how do you deal with your supporters that feel like they have a right to be privy to your personal life? How do you handle that?
I embrace it. Because, you know, if it weren't for the fans, right, if it weren't for the people watching and the people that, you know, become infatuated or are inspired, then there's no show. And so, you know, I am by no way, shape, or form, you know, any big public figure. You know, I mean, I can still, you know, go to the bank and do things like that. And yes, I get stopped every day.
Right.
But I can bring joy to someone so easily by stopping to take a picture with them. And so if that's all it takes for me to bring joy to that person that day, I'll take 1,000 pictures. You know what I mean? And listen, I know what it's like because I've worked for major celebrities, what it's like to stop every 5 seconds and take a picture.
Right.
I would just sometimes say to the person, sometimes the memory of meeting that person is so much far outweighs the snapshot.
Okay.
So, you know, Bill Maher does not take pictures with fans ever at all. And the reason why is because he wants the interpersonal reaction, is what he says. You know what I mean? He wants you to look in his eye. Like, if you meet me and you're a big fan, instead of taking the 5 minutes to focus the camera, get the thing, why don't we talk for a second? You know, instead of taking those 30 seconds. Like, you know, I love what you said about the show last night. That's true. Maybe you'll engage him in a conversation, and maybe you'll have a real meeting versus a photograph. So everybody has their own, you know, everybody has their own way of dealing with it and their own barriers. I mean, Amy Schumer, someone I love, won't take pictures with fans. You know, that is just not the way I do it. So do I think, you know, so I've had people sit down at the table with me at dinner, you know what I mean? And I'm the same with them as I would be with anybody else. I'm completely honest and transparent. I would say, I would love to sit and chat with you, but I'm actually at dinner with friends. So if you want a picture or something, let's do that so that I can carry on and you'll carry on. Okay. And I'm just honest with them. I'm like, or I'll be like, girl, you can't sit down at this table without you crazy. And I make a joke of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I make light of it because sometimes they don't even realize what they're doing. She's like, oh my God, I'm sitting down. I didn't realize I sat down. I slid right in here and I sat down.
So they're just drawn to that. And that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I embrace it, Michelle. I do. And, you know, it was, you know, it's part of, you know, and I was also on a reality show. So it wasn't like I was playing a part in a movie. And although it was edited, I mean, you get the gist of who I am. And so people, when they come up to me genuinely, they want to know about how Jax is doing. They want to know about my family. They want to tell me how cute they think my husband is, or, you know, God, how much Ella has grown, because they literally watch my life on television. So for me to not think that, you know, that they do know me a little bit would be, you know, just not honest with myself. So they said, God, I feel like I know you. I go, well, yeah, I guess you do know me a little bit. You know what I mean? What you have to remember is I don't know you. Right.
So, Heather, it seems to me that...
I embrace it.
Good deal. Heather, it seems to me that there's a growing insensitivity with boys, young boys, as they begin relating to girls. Subsequently, this could turn into a more mature individual who develops an improper approach towards women. What do you think are the better approaches on teaching boys how to properly respect females? And do you run into this situation often?
Wow. So, you know, I'll tell you, I'm raising a young boy right now.
Right.
You know, my little guy is, you know, 12 going on 13. And, you know, I've had some conversations with some friends of mine because I think that adolescence and puberty and things like that have to be addressed in an open, honest forum. So, you know, the first time that, you know, Jack experienced, you know, or understood that, you know, he did more than, you know, his penis was more than for peeing, right? When it started to act up, and he's like, whoa, what's this, Mom? Why is he doing that, you know? I think that we have to teach, if we can't teach it to parents, now it's too late. We have to teach it in the schools to children. Right. There has to be an open dialogue about this. I think a lot of that mistreatment comes from probably some type of sexual frustration.
Right.
Like they're not able to
verbalize.
Jack, when
right.
He kisses me. Yes.
Right.
They don't know. And it's like it's taboo. Like all that stuff used to be shoved under the carpet. Like we don't talk about our genitals.
So we need to talk about it.
Our genitals.
So we can't run away from it. We just need to talk about it and address it and expose it.
It's
yes.
real. That's how God made us. Right?
Exactly.
That's, we're reproductive. People. And 1 + 1 is what it takes to equal a baby. Right.
Right.
So, and clearly, science has come a long way, but generally people make babies by having sex.
Right.
And, I think that to talk about young boys and when they're hitting puberty, and it's very different for a little girl, and how they're aging, to talk openly about their feelings and how to handle their feelings. And
right.
I remember, I don't know how openly I can talk on this show.
No, we're open. No topic is taboo. Let's talk about it. Real talk.
Got hard. I was home alone. Jonathan wasn't here, and he's like, Mom, it hurts. I gave him an ice pack. I had no idea what else to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But you know what? We as mothers, we always find a way to comfort our children.
Yeah, I don't know if the ice pack was so comforting. He's like, what is this one? And all my guy friends are like, you don't give him an ice pack. They told me to do so. I should have done something to take his mind off of it. Like put on something like the anticlimax.
Right.
That would be what, the backyardigans or something.
But you were doing what you knew to do.
So I think that, and it's like, there's books written about pregnancy and like
right.
what to do, but there's still stuff that happens in pregnancy that people don't talk about in those books. And so I think that we should openly embrace,
we need to talk about the elephant
behavior.
in the room. We need to talk about the elephant in the room.
And I say this to Jax all the time, you know what I mean? I'm like, I talk to him about how you treat other people and human beings, not necessarily because if you're going to treat sexism, in the home at a young age, like, oh, don't do that, she's a girl.
Right.
Well, then we're not going to have equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it came from the whole, like, I remember, 2 years ago or something, Jax was like, Ella throws like a girl. I'm like, well, she's a girl.
Right.
But what does that even mean? And, like, it was something that he heard, and he didn't even know what it meant.
He was just mimicking what he heard. You're right.
That's right. And most of the time, that's what it is. And so sometimes you can take bad parenting in another child and turn it into good parenting in your own home.
I love it.
We talk about things in my home. Paula Dean taught my kids the N-word, and I had to and then we wound up watching Abraham Lincoln together and really understanding it. The President of the United States taught my daughter the word pussy, and I had to explain to her what it was.
Right.
So, not only is it in the schools, but it's right here in our homes on our television sets.
So we turn the potentially negative connotation and we use that as an opportunity to learn. Yeah, an educational opportunity. Good. I love your approach. I love your approach. So for my listening audience, I hope that you are taking this all in. Public people need the public in order to keep them public. Heather, how often do you think women place themselves into compromising situations in the process of keeping themselves relevant in the eyes of the public?
I think, as you can see, what we were talking about, I think it happens all too often, and I think that with, again, the uprising and support and more people saying, hey, that's not okay right away, and not allowing it to happen, because now there is a support system for it.
Right.
You look at Bill Cosby, you look at, these real public figures that have taken advantage of, hundreds of women, over several years. So change can always, it starts today.
Change happens.
Starts today. So anybody that's listening, whether it's a daughter, a niece, a sister, a best friend's kid, a godparent, by the way, men are stepping out. Look at Terry Crews, you know?
Yes.
I mean, Terry came out and, and said, hey, man, like it happens to me. Clearly, the men are the minority, but it happens to everybody. And he even let it happen. He even said, I was shameful because I just turned my cheek, right? Mm-hmm. So, we're taught to turn the other cheek sometimes.
Because, we're not taught how to deal with those encounters and those situations.
We don't have the tools to deal with it.
Right.
Because, and also we don't have the support. I mean, 9 times out of 10, even right now today, if you spoke up against someone in a higher ranking position that was more powerful for you than a job, you'd probably get fired.
Right. And there's that fear that keeps you silent. Yeah.
That's right.
Especially if that
So
income
what I
is
say
helping
is
to maintain your
prepare yourself.
household. Yeah.
I say don't forget, record it. You know what I mean? As long as you're not in an unsafe situation, build your story. Go, by the way, while you're looking for another job.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like, if they're going to use you up, you use them up.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I get how. Okay, so you can play the game now.
Look,
okay. So
a woman after my own heart, Heather.
Yes. I'm going to show up to work here, and I'm going to collect my check while I'm over here at my desk looking for another job.
Right.
And I'm going to start to make note of your come-ons. I'm going to start to make note. I'm going to record you if it's legal in your state. And I'm gonna build my case, and then before I leave, I'm gonna drop the bomb and be like, by the way, you're an asshole.
There you go. There you go. A woman after my own.
You know what I mean? So, like, you got to be bigger than the problem. You got to be smarter than the problem.
There you go. This is a lot of good information. This is a lot of good
situation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a lot of good information for my listening audience, especially for my women, but also for the men that have encountered this. So,
yes.
Most definitely, Heather, for a man or a woman that is in that situation or has encountered that and is debating on whether or not they should come forward, and that person was in front of you, what would you say to them and how would you support them?
I would support them with my own knowledge, and I would, give them advice on what to do. To those people that I couldn't come in contact with personally, I would say go to your local authorities. And I would say to them, what are my rights? Give me some tips. What do you know? How can I be bigger than the problem? If you have, it doesn't mean you have to press the charges. Just because you go to the cops doesn't mean that you got to press the charges, right? And that's another, there are really bad cops out there, but there are really good cops out there. Go to a judge and go to your town judge, whatever. You don't even have to mention names. Be like, I'm experiencing this at work, and I want to know what my rights are, and I want to know how best to navigate through this situation.
Right.
Go to people that have experience dealing with this type of thing day in and day out. That have seen the legal system not work. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at the Italian chick that went in with a wire.
Wow,
Not enough evidence. Not enough evidence. Now, she's a brave woman. And she did all that, and it wasn't enough. But you know what? She got her day. Because, people
she
who
got
do
to
wrong,
speak her
at
truth.
the end of the day,
she got to speak her truth, and she got to use her voice.
Truth will set you free.
And regain her voice.
And it may not be instant gratification.
But you're paving the way. You may
be
be paving the way for others that come behind you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd always rather look back and say, I'm glad I did, than I'm sorry I didn't.
So, Heather, thank you for sharing all of that, because you are just, I'm elated, because I knew when I first met you that there was just this, we're kindred spirits, and I was just drawn to your spirit and to your fight, the warrior within you. So I appreciate everything that you're sharing today. Heather, you see more often than not that these very sensitive and compromising issues that plague public couples and have surfaced in the most embarrassing public ways, often resulting in the spouse or significant other leaving. But they've been together forever, and then now that something has happened that comes up before the public, the other person wants to jump ship to save further embarrassment. Where is the fairness in that? And it sounds hypocritical to me, but what are your thoughts on that?
Again, I think it's individual, and I think, you don't really ever know the full story. You know what I mean? And
I believe that.
Whether it's fair or unfair, unfortunately, it goes with being in the public eye. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And the only good thing about when these
so it
things
comes with the territory.
Yes, it does. It just does. It's unfortunate, but it does. And or you become a public figure because you're outrageous as a society member, right? So either you're already in it and you've drawn some type of attention to yourself, or it's been drawn to you because of your spouse or someone else in your life. Or you've been outlandish as a citizen, and now you've been drawn into the public eye. But I still believe that everybody has a right to like a fair trial, like a trial by jury. But what happens with now social media and the media, how they're everywhere, is that first the public display kind of gets there first. And by the way, I mean, we're all deserving of a fair trial by our peers if you can get there, because first you have to go through all this bullshit in the court system before you can even get to a fair trial, by emotions and this and that, and hundreds of thousands of dollars before you can even get to trial. So I think that we should be a little bit I think we should be less judgmental.
Okay.
And that's what I think it really stems down to.
So it just boils down to being less judgmental.
More empathy and less judgment. More empathy and less judgment. Because nobody's perfect, and to error is human. And I always say it's not about how you hit the mat, it's how you get back up.
I love it.
We're all going to go down.
I love it, because we all fall down. But it's in the getting back up that the victory is there. Yes, I love it.
So the only beauty about public, unfortunate to the celebrity or the person in the public eye, unfortunate to them, is that these become lessons to society.
Okay.
And by example, you can use where someone was unfairly accused, or someone was treating other people unfairly and have now been magnified, like Harvey Weinstein. You know what I mean? It's just, you've got to use them as lessons.
Right.
Growth, forward motion.
So life lessons.
Yeah.
So a public figure or a couple has to come to that reality that their relationship could end in a tragic manner just because. And along with that question, I want to include the caveat that being a public figure, just like any other pursuit that you pursue as far as career goes, you do the research, you find out about the industry, you find out. So in a sense, do you have to just become okay with the fact that that's a part of the process, or that's a part of that comes with the territory?
You've got to ask that one again.
Okay. So with public figures that are couples or have a significant other, they must accept that that's part of the reality, that their relationship could end in a tragic manner because of what they do, and that they're under a higher level of scrutiny.
Yeah, I mean, listen, relationships are hard enough as it is.
Right.
I
agree.
And so certainly marriages, relationships, crumble, when people are in the public eye. And sometimes it's because of that, and sometimes it's just because relationships crumble and you hear about it. There's definitely actors out there that said, I would never date another actor. I want to date, a normal everyday person. I don't want to date someone who's in the public eye.
Right.
And if you look at some of the celebrities that have chosen, I mean, I'll Sandra Bullock, really big, fantastic example.
Yes.
Look at how she was sprung into the public eye, not for being America's sweetheart, but because Jesse, James, after she thanked him on the stage for her award, was having this torrid affair, right?
Right.
What do you hear about Sandra today? She's happily with a man, raising her child out of the public eye.
Right.
So I think that it's choices people have to make, and I think that if you choose to stay in the mainstream public, that you are potentially setting yourself up for more difficulties in relationships going forward. It's all about choice.
So
we
there
all
you
have choices.
Right. There you have it for my listening audience. It's all about choices. And the only way that we can bring change is we ourselves have to be that change. And so bottom line, people that are in the public eye, they're in the public eye because of the public. The public, I mean, their supporters are the ones that are enable them to continue to do what they do. So I just want to thank you, Heather, for coming on and sharing about what it's like to be a public figure and how that potentially impacts your interpersonal relationships. What I would like for you to do is to just share a little bit with my audience what has been or is your secret to success, one of your defining moments, and then wrap it up with a takeaway and a call to action.
Defining moments for me, definitely some of my time with Puffy.
Okay.
He Sean Combs, for those of you who
I was about to say, for those of you that don't know.
Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Okay.
Right.
Puff, I call him Puff still. Sean Combs.
Mm-hmm.
He was definitely, especially not only. Some of them I recognized right when I was in it, when I was working with him, and others I reflected on and recognized later in life. Puffy really, really showed me what I was made of. I mean, he pushed me to limits like I just, didn't think I could reach beyond.
Mm-hmm.
He showed me how tough I was, and he showed me what I was made of by challenging me. So, those were defining moments for me in my career as a person.
Good deal.
And as a person. I think every day, defining moments for me is when I recognize ways that I can better myself.
Okay.
Part of who you are is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying to my best friend Hampton, sometimes I just can't keep my mouth shut, and I always got to speak, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, but it's who you are, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I don't want to change who I am, but I do want to always better who I am.
Okay.
So now I sometimes ask myself, what can be gained by speaking out here?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And maybe it's not that you keep your mouth shut. It's just that it's just not right now.
Okay.
Or you think
not never, just not right now.
Exactly.
Okay.
So give yourself some time to think about how you want to deliver the message.
Okay.
So those are defining moments in my everyday life.
Okay, good deal.
And so I try not to hang my hat on one big defining moment,
mm-hmm.
but all the little moments that make up what counts.
Right. Thank you so much, Heather. So one call to action, and then I'm going to wrap it up for our listening audience.
One call to action.
Yes.
For sure. You have to get involved. If you want to see change, you have to be the change. I got so tired during the election of people squawking about this and that and slapping their jaws from their big old sofas.
Good
you know
deal.
what I mean?
Yes.
Like, get out and be a part of your community. If you're unhappy about something, well, then lean in and do
Thank
change.
you.
If not, keep your mouth shut and watch it go by. You know what I mean? And there's little things that you can do. I don't mean you got to go run for office.
Right.
Just, whether it's a message or
just
a
get
group
involved.
That you get together.
Get involved.
Get involved.
Get involved.
That is my call to action. Get involved.
There you have it. So there you have it for my listening audience. You've heard it from Heather Thompson. Be the change you want to see and get involved. So Heather, I want to thank you for joining us by phone and sharing with our audience your testimony, your experience, and your insight on the pros and cons of being a public figure and how that can potentially impact your interpersonal relationships. You've been listening to Michelle Speaks with me, your host, Michelle Portier, and we've been talking about with my guest this evening, Heather Thompson, mother, fashion executive and designer, entrepreneur, and licensed health and wellness coach. Tune in to us every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All of our shows are available in our podcast directory for free 24/7 by going to the 180radionow.com/podcast or click the podcast link in the menu on the homepage. Click the Michelle Speaks logo and you can access all of our previously aired shows. Download the 180 Radio Now app on your phone, on Google Play and Apple App Store. You can also listen directly on the 180radionow.com website by clicking the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage. Also, listen through your web browser on every major internet radio directory: iTunes Radio, TuneIn, Radio.com, Streama, Screamer Radio, and more. It is our sincere prayer that what you've heard today has blessed you and provided you with information you can use to help you in your situation or someone else's. Tune in again as we get to the heart of the matter, because if you hide it, you can't heal it.
I'll give you my social media hashtag, and it's heatherthompson.com is my website, and my social media name is at I am Heather T.
Okay.
And okay. All right, you guys. I would love to stay in chat, but now I got to fly.
I know you got to go. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you. Big love and kisses. I hope you guys were happy with it. It was so fun.
We were. It was awesome. Bye-bye.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, baby. Bye.
All right. Bye. Yeah, that was a different experience doing it by phone. Huh?
Very much so.
Yeah. I don't think I like the by phone.
Huh?
I don't think I like calling.
That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Why don't you like it?